Hello guys, I'm going to be talking about variables in C. So in my last video I talked about data types. So I mentioned data types and I talk about different data types where I talk about integer which means numbers. So these are numbers. This data type only accepts numbers, so we take numbers. And I talk about char. This char is character, so it only accepts letters. Then I talk about float. It means decimal, so it take decimal like 3.1, 3.2, 3.4. Double. Then I talk about double. We only use double for precision when you want your decimal or these decimal numbers to be correct. So this accepts long decimal numbers. So what is going to happen if you use float instead of double? What happened is, let's say your number, this is your number, 3.112234, and this is the maximum number. For float can only accept maximum decimal number of 6. So if you count this, you see that these are 6 decimal numbers. So float can actually accept maximum number of 6. So float accept maximum number of 6. And so what happens if it is longer than 6? What happens is it's going to start making mistake. So let's say you're trying to store 7, 8 like this. So this is a long number and this float only accepts maximum number of 6 decimal numbers. And now if we count this, we see that this is 9. So what's going to happen? So it's going to keep only the 6. It's going to keep the 6 correctly. Then this is going to be wrong. That's what happened. So this is going to be wrong. So it's going to change the values here because it can't store more than 6 decimal numbers, so it's going to change the value. So here instead of 7 you can have something like 5, and here you can have something like 2, you can have something like 3 here. So it's going to change. It's not going to keep this number. It's going to make mistake. It's not going to be correct after 6 decimal number. So if you're working with a project that you want all your decimal to remain the same, you don't want any error, you don't want anything to change in your decimal, you have to use double. You use double, and this is where we use double, and that's why we say precision. When precision is needed, we use double. So precision. So I'm just going to type it. So it's when you need precision, when it's highly needed, that's when you use double. And if you use double, it's never gonna change. It's never gonna change the values. It's going to keep the value the way they are. So in the last video I talked about memory, and I was trying to explain that memory is a piece, it's a large area of land, and you're trying to store things, you're trying to build city. So I explained that, and I draw something, and I was trying to analyze so that you guys can understand. So this memory is just a large area of land, and this memory, it have different sections, so you can't just store things you like. You can't just store anyhow. It's not allowed. It has different section. It has some section where you store numbers, and this section we call it int. So int, this is where you store numbers. And we have another section and that store character. These are small because character take only 1 byte, so it's smaller. So this only store letters. And we have some other parts that can actually store floats. So it store decimal numbers. So this is float, store decimal numbers. And we have another one which is double. So this is like a big space. Since it's 8 bytes, you can see that it's 8 bytes. So it stores double. So this is what I was trying to explain, that memory, you can't just store anything. And what are variables? Variables is the name you want to give the space. So if you're trying to book a space, so let's say you're trying to book a space and you want to give it a name, and the name of the space is called variables. So variable is just like you telling C that I'm going to need a space here, I'm going to need a space here, and I want you to give that space for me, keep that space for me, and the name of the space is going to be X. That's a variable. And if you want to store something in this space, then you're going to say X equals to 5. So if you write X equals to 5, so once you say something like this, C actually understand that, okay, this space is called X, so you want to put 5 inside. So it's just going to put 5 here. So here is going to be 5. That's the best way for you to understand variables and data types and how memory actually works. So let's say I'm trying to, if I write something like this, X equals to 5, X equals to 5, without declaration. So if you write something like this is not going to work. This is not accepted because C does not understand what is X. So you need to book a space first before you put something inside. So this X means you're telling C that X equals to 5. Then C is going to look at the memory. There's no X in the memory. You've not booked a space called X in the memory. So you need to book a space, and that's what we call declaration. So we call it declaration. When you declare is when you book a space. So if I say int X, this actually means this is allowed. This is not allowed. That means you're trying to book a space. The type of space you want is int. So you want a space that can actually store numbers. So let's say here is the part of memory that store numbers. So it's going to go here and it's going to book a space for you, and it's going to call it X. So after, if you want to put something like this, after writing this, now you can actually write this, because now you now have a space called X and you're trying to store 5 inside. So if you write something like this, it's going to go look over the memory, it's going to look, then it's going to find a space called X because you've already booked this space, then it's going to store 5 inside. So variable is just like a place where you store values. It's a place where you store data. That's how variable actually works. So this is the best way for you to understand this. It's very simple. So variable store data. Variable store data in the memory. That's the work of variable, and this variable can be anything. It can actually be anything. You can call your variable any names, you can call it any names. So it's up to you. So it's up to you if you want to name your variable. If you're trying to name whatever you want to name a space, it's up to you. So if I type something like this, char, if I type something like this, char X equal to A. So this each time you want to store A, you have to use double quotation. That's how C works. C only understand that if you don't put double quotation, C is not going to understand what you're trying to say. So each time you want to store character, you have to use double quotation. So C is going to look inside this quotation, it's going to look here and see the character. So that's how C works. That's the logic. So you need to master that. So you can't just say something like this. You can't just say char equals to A. It's not correct. C is going to say, what is A? I don't know. You need to tell me that this A is a character, this A is a letter. And that's why you have to put quotation. So this char, this is correct. So now what you're trying to tell C here, you're trying to tell C that book a space for me here and a space that I can store character. So it's going to look at the memory and it's going to go to the place where character is allowed and it's going to store here there. So this part of the memory that stores your A is going to give you a name called X, and that's what we call variable. So it's the name of the part of the memory that store your data. So what if you say something like this? So what if you say something like this? Char X equals to 2. So what if you say something like this? So what is going to happen is C is going to look, then it's going to check the part of the memory, that stores character, and it's going to try to put 2 there. Then C is going to throw error. It's going to tell you that this part of the memory only accepts character. It does not accept numbers. So you have to go so you need to indicate that this value is numbers. So you can't store numbers inside part of the memory that stores character. It's not possible. You have to indicate that it's going to throw error. So C is going to come back that I can't do this task because you're trying to store numbers where it's not allowed. So you need to change this. So this have to be integer since you're trying to store numbers. Then after this, C is going to go back to the memory and it's going to look for, okay, now I understand what you're trying to do, and I'm able to store these numbers inside part of the memory that can actually store numbers. So that's how it works. So memory have different layout and different things. You can't just store anyhow. So we have part that store numbers, we have part that store character, we have part that store floats, and we have part that store double. So you can't just store what you like, and each time you want to store data, you need to tell C the type of data you want to store. So if you want to store integer, you need to tell C, you need to use int x. If you want to store character, you need to use char. If you want to store double, you need to use double. So if you want to store double, you need to use double. If you want to store float, you need to use float. That's declaration. So you need to tell C the kind of data you're trying to store. So this is the best way for us to understand variables. And one last thing I want to talk about is this. When you store in numbers, int x, you don't need double quotation. So you don't need quotation. So you guys see that most times if I write something, I always put semicolon. You have to get used to it because this is how C works. Semicolon, it ends every statement, so you have to include it. If you don't put it, C is not gonna know that this is a statement. So this semicolon always end every statement in your program. So here you guys can see that here you don't need double quotation. Here it's not needed because C know already that this is a number, so you don't need quotation. So if you put quotation here, this is a symbol, this is no longer a number, because quotation, it means character. So it means character, it means symbols, and you know letters it can store character can actually store letters. So it can store minus, it can store plus, it can store full stop, it can store semicolon, so it depends. So once you prove it inside double quotation, then C is gonna think that this 2 is not a numbers, it's a symbol, so it's not gonna treat it like a numbers. Then it's gonna throw error that you trying to store character inside integer, because it's not seeing this as integer anymore, because anything inside double quotation is like character or symbols. So in my next video, we're going to be talking more on C programming. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please subscribe to this channel and like this video. See you guys later.